To me, well, I mean, my practice session is not very structured, and it's not what people really like to hear me give a lesson about. But I think the most important thing when I approach practicing is to know what I want to work on that day. I mean, especially because I'm, playing around all these places and I have to learn a lot of different things. So, constantly I'll be thinking about stuff, even when I'm traveling. It's not going to be exactly consciously thinking about it, but I'll know what I need to work on. Like in this piece, the ending is really difficult. Like you're really tired, so I'm gonna, today when I practice, I'm definitely gonna get to practicing the end of this part slowly. And sorry, I'm talking back to you guys, but I can't be two directions at once. And there's some memory issues I have in some other piece, and this other piece I'll need to go through slowly as well because my fingers don't really know 100% as much as I'd like them to know. So that's kind of all arranged for myself first. How do I want to approach and what do I want to work on? It also depends on first, if I have something immediately coming up, then the first most important thing is to be able to play through the pieces convincingly, to know what I want to do musically and how I want it to sound. And then, notes are important, but the music is infinitely more important than the notes. So, you obviously have to know the notes and to be very clear on that, but the music is, knowing how to make music will trump any technical mistakes you have or anything will pale in comparison to a really great performance of a musical caliber. So. Do you guys pull around at the piano when you're not practicing? Yeah, like.
I wish I played.
That's actually what I do a lot to warm up. I'll train my ear. My ear is kind of one of the most important abilities I think that I have at the piano, to listen to something and be able to play it. And that's not something that, some people, for some of you, Petr or whatever, but that's just a basic level. Being able to hear chords and everything is kind of the end all, to hear someone, to play. Just peek around on the piano and listen to how the hall responds. Check out the pedal, see how it. Do different dynamics. Every part of the piano just to make sure, because sometimes you never know. This is a great piano, but sometimes you never know. This piano's fine. And I've already kind of played a little bit earlier, so. With regards to scales and all that stuff, I find it really much more efficient to find the scales that are in the pieces you're playing and to really just focus on that. And even, if you're playing a piece in A flat major, improvise in A flat major or play chords in A flat major. What I like to do was, I play through a piece, I find a chord I like, and I'll try to get there. For example, one of my favorite parts in this Chopin impromptu. Ways to get there. do it because I've had experience, just looking at different scores and doing it, but you have to start somewhere. And I remember one of the first things I used to do was to take a Chopin piece, play the same left hand that Chopin wrote, and play a completely different melody on the right hand, just for fun, I mean, I have your... Something like that. And you can do the other way around and play the melody and play a different harmony on it. I mean, it's kind of blasphemous. People are like, no, don't ruin Chopin, but it's fine. Something like that, I mess around with the piano a lot. So after I'm kind of sick and tired of doing that, then I'll start practicing. Let's see. A couple of techniques that I like, and they're so effective that I feel like it's cheating, but it's not, is us to use patterns to practice. So if you have a run or something really quick, I'll stop. So if there's triplets, I'll stop on the first note of each triplet group and then connect the two. So this. Back into the focus on each note of each group. So you focus on the first note because you make sure they match up and you're playing them together in the right notes, and then and that way you get maximum amount of attention on each note. And if you can't play it by the time you've ran through it 3 times, you probably can play it now. So that's also really important. And the last thing is to not just play, but to actually play it like you want to play it in performance, with the dynamics, with the expression that you want, even when you're doing slow practice. Because if you're just practicing notes by itself, and then you finish that, and then you go back and practice musicality, you're doing double work, when you can just put it together if you know what you want to do with the piece. So that's a really important thing to do. certain level, it's a lot of listening to what's coming out of the piano and reacting to it. And not just about wrong notes, but also about the relationship between notes and the neighboring notes and the notes, the chord, you know, the note underneath it, the note above it. All of it matters in the placement of each chord. You know, my teacher tells me to wait. So that's timing is, for me, one of the most important aspects of performing and making music, but it's also one of the most difficult things to conquer, because when you're on stage and performing, you're nervous. The time, what kind of the speed that you're thinking in is completely different from the speed at which other people hear you. And so a lot of times, I don't know if you listen to yourself after you perform, you go, I can't believe I played so fast. And it's just because your brain's kind of moving at a different speed than what people are hearing. So right now, like, I'm just flipping through and I'm just thinking about, you know, I played this last week and I was thinking about stuff that didn't go as well as I think it should have, and making a note in my mind when I practice what I should watch out for. Yeah, so that's kind of like how I approach it. And it's even, when you're not around, it's even more OCD. Like, I'll go through the passage multiple times doing the same pattern, and then multiple times doing the next pattern, and go through all the patterns, and then I feel more secure about it. And you'd be surprised how long you can practice. If you're going for practicing length, which you shouldn't do, but you'd be surprised how long you can be in front of the piano if you are really focused on the details. Well, I'll just do that later. Let's see. One important thing to learn how to do is to play legato, which is always very hard to do, especially without the pedal. And that involves practice something like this. That kind of legato, if you have to really practice. I overlap quite a bit.
Talking about legatissimo.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, the way I practice is I try to find different ways and methods and kind of little games to play with myself, you know, to make sure I'm focused on what I need to be focused on, but also that I'm not just, you know, if I don't know what to do, I'm not just gonna playing it through, because that's not gonna help. And if I play it through, then I start from the beginning. I pretend like it's a performance, you know, maybe I put a recorder here and I'll play through it, and you know, if I make a mistake, just keep going. You know, the point is to kind of emulate playing on stage. And you can get pretty nervous in front of a recorder, actually. You'd be surprised how nervous you can get. And then there's the opposite articulation. To me, the piano, if you don't make different colors out of it, it's just going to sound like piano. And the last thing you want to do is just sound like piano. You want to sound like all the different colors you can possibly make. You know, it has to do really with how much pedal you use, how little pedal you use, how the attack speed of the keys. Because if I go, loud, kind of loud, but still, what if I do? Different sound. Also, the relationship between the notes to each other, and down later sounds different. So the opening of this piece is a very nice melody. But how much you use pedal also makes a difference. I mean, you just want to, I mean, I think the goal of learning piano and taking piano lessons is to build your toolbox of what you can do on the piano. And, you know, that starts with playing scales, and I did all this, you know, hand-in stuff, and, you know, all that stuff a lot. And the point is not to be able to play fast just for playing fast, but you want to be able to play fast with articulation, with expression, with dynamic control. I mean, you want to be able to play right hand loud like. To do all you can do with your technique. Well, what else? So, I guess I can talk about, people always ask me about memory. So, in my opinion, there's three kinds of memory. First kind of memory is the hearing memory. So like, you guys all know how your pieces go probably. You can hum them, we can hum pop songs, you can hum Disney tunes. That's the kind of oral memory. And, when you're playing through, your ears are listening and it kind of guides you where you're going. Second type of memory is the tactile memory. So your fingers, because you practice a lot, your fingers can kind of go by itself. I mean, I don't really have to think, I tell my fingers individually to go. I haven't practiced that piece in a while, but my fingers kind of know what they're supposed to do. But the third kind of memory is the hardest, and that's knowing every single note and dynamic and articulation marking of the piece. So if I have, especially during a competitive event, when you absolutely can't mess up on stage, I will spend the night before, so I'll sit there, away from the piano, and I'll think, I'll try to either visualize the score with the notes on it, or either see my hands play the piano, but I actually have my hands playing the piano. So, I mean, you can't really see what's going on in my head, so it's, but the point is to know that, okay, D and B flat start the piece, the thumb goes like this, and then, to know every single note in every position, and especially with the difficult spots, if you can slow it down in your head and see your fingers do it without actually using them, it'll be so much clearer in your mind, and, when you go on stage, you'll have, I guarantee you, almost no problems with memory if you can do that. If you can know each single note, even in the pieces you're playing now. If you sit down with a blank piece of sheet music and actually write down the whole thing, if you can, then I don't think you'll have a problem on stage. That's what I think. Of course, that kind of perfect memory is almost unattainable, especially with harder pieces. But the more you can do it, the more. I mean, I played a lot of contemporary stuff. The Devil's Staircase is an etude by Ligeti. And form of memorizing, having to know, and I still, there were parts, I haven't played this since Cliburn, but there are parts that, if I had to play it tonight, play through, oh, I know what I need to work on there, because it's a combination of my ears kind of know how it goes, my fingers kind of know how they feel, but to know, like, especially some of the, the whole thing is thorny, but to know exactly what's going on with the hands, with the split rhythms and stuff, is, I think, vital to being able to play this on stage. So, thankfully not everything is as hard as that. So, usually, if the ear helps a lot more. But, I don't know what time we're at.
Sean, I have a quick question. I have a question about memorization.
Yeah.
Once you have a piece memorized, do you go, if you're practicing it again, like let's say you've got it memorized and then you're playing it at a recital like in 3 months and you pick it back up, do you go back to the music or do you practice it without the music?
Both. I usually try to play it once without the score to see where it's at, but then afterwards I'll go to the music. There's a story to prove that you should use the music. I've been playing the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto since I was 13. And every time I go back, I find that I've learned notes incorrectly, even as recent as after the Cliburn. So I actually learned notes wrong and played it wrong at the Cliburn. It's something small as, what is it? Small thing like that. And if I don't go back to the score, I'll never, maybe if I listen to the recording a lot, then you'll get, wait, that doesn't sound about the same. But, always go back to the score. I have my scores with me. Even if you know 100%, you don't know 100%. So it's good to have stuff with you. And for me, it also helps to see the notes on the page to kind of see in my mind. I know where all the page turns are in my pieces. Not because I actually memorized it, but because I've seen it so much. And that's kind of how and that's actually how I used to study for like history tests and stuff. I saw things. I don't have photographic memory, but I have like relationship-wise memory where things are in relationship to each other. I'll be like, oh, I remember this chart on the right side, and there's this term on the left side that I had to remember, that I had to deal with this. So, my dad always told me, it's not about working hard necessarily, it's about working smart. And that's kind of my approach to everything, is to know exactly, or at least to the extent that you can, know what you want to do when you tackle something, whether it be practicing tennis, playing video games, anything, drawing. And you have to, obviously you want it to be fun, but I don't know, maybe that's just me.
So how many hours a day at the piano?
Depends. When I was in high school, I actually did came home from school, had to do all normal kids, watched Super Friends, had a bowl of cereal, sat around, and then when I started practicing, it would be around, before dinner time, and then I had dinner, and then after dinner, rest a little bit and practice. And then my parents would start yelling at me about like 11:30 because the neighbors would be, I don't want to piss off the neighbors. So I'd say like average around 2 or 3 in high school. Sometimes it was a lot less depending on if I had AP classes and homework to do. But that taught me time management and how to work effectively. Because my piano teacher didn't let me. He didn't let me say, "Oh, I have too much homework. I don't want to do this competition." He'd be like, "No, suck it up and do it." And so I had to kind of plan my I need to get my homework done because that was important to me. But I also wanted to play well, and so sometimes I didn't play well, but you learn to manage your time correctly. At the Cliburn, I did like 9, 10 hours sometimes, and it's not because I want to, but it's not because I'm timing myself. It's because I wake up and I'm like, oh, I need to I have this performance tomorrow. This part is still not ready. I'll run through it, be like, I gotta work on it, and I'll run through it again. And be okay, I'll put the recorder on, run through my entire recital program, listen to it, fix stuff, and then practice again. And maybe the last thing I'll do that day is to run through it again. So
when we all leave, Will you play through the recital that you're playing tomorrow, or will you work on things you're working for the future, or both?
Well, it's a case-by-case basis, but I think today I won't run through because I've already ran through the program before. I played it other places, so I know I can get through it. It's the details that matter now, the refinement. I mean, maybe I'll play through the piece. I don't like to be. I like to know kind of how I want to do things, but the exact details. Yeah. My school, one of my schools tried to implement a practice room sign-up schedule where you have to like sign up before you can practice there, and I was the first person to say, no, I can't do it. I feel like practicing, I'll go practice. I don't like waking up in the morning and go, oh, I think I'll practice at 5 p.m. today. Like, I can't do that because I might just want to, sit at the piano and play something, fool around for an hour and a half, and maybe I'll say I want to practice at 2, and then when it comes time for 2, I just ate lunch, I'm tired, I don't want to practice, I won't practice. Because if I'm not into it, I don't get as much done as if I'm, completely ready to practice. Obviously, sometimes you don't want to practice, but you still have to. There's something coming up tomorrow morning, and you can't not practice. So there's a good balance between being prepared and doing things that you want, and to the best of your capabilities. And the other side is you just got to do something sometimes. And if your teacher gives you this piece and you don't really like it, but you should probably learn it because it's probably good for you to learn it. So,
So you guys should remember what Sean said, and when we have the session with the woman from Italy and the man from Ukraine, you should see if there's a difference.
Completely different, probably.
Yes, I think they're probably, your answer feels very American.
I'm like California, totally.
Right, it does. It feels a little...
Whatever, just go to the beach.
Or the state, the place I am at that time is what I'm going to do, which is very American, very California. So it'll be interesting to remember that and see what the others say.
And I think the good thing about having other people is this is not the only way to do it, obviously.
Of course. But it's gotten you quite far.
It's gotten me, I've managed to maintain my sanity while still pursuing music. And to me, I'm like a kid at heart, so I like to enjoy things. And
it sounds like you like to play a lot.
I like to play a lot, and it's, if I didn't want to do, music is something I enjoy, and I have to be good at, and happen to be people like listening to it. But there's plenty of other things I like to do. So it's all about, to me, it's all about, I'm alive. I want to learn as much as I can about everything. I'm a very big science tech guy too, because that's like what we grew up with, and I like to figure out how things work. So even with music, I like to figure out, like I said before, this chord I like in Rachmaninoff. He always goes, this half diminished. And use that. Why does it sound so Rachmaninoff? And I go in and analyze that and try to incorporate it into my improvisations.
So kids, do you have any question to Sean? Look, you have a question, right?
Yeah.
Or over there? Okay, let's make the lady first. Okay, you have the question? No? You're just stretching, okay. Sorry. So look, go ahead.
My dad told me that you were accepted to MIT and Harvard, and you went to Juilliard. I just want to know why.
Why did you do that? You're a millionaire. No. First of all, I think what got me into MIT and Harvard is piano. And that's kind of ironic, because if I go to MIT or Harvard, I probably wouldn't be doing piano now. They like people who show discipline, who show that they, really can dedicate themselves to something and pursue it. And I did competitions and I was sometimes successful and stuff, but just to see that resume, they like that kind of stuff. But in my case, it was something that is feasibly something that I could do as a career. So, I got into both places. I thought, well, there are a couple of things I asked myself. If I went to Harvard, what would I want to do? I wasn't really sure. I like science, but what kind of science? I would probably spend, 2 years taking a bunch of classes, getting to know different things, and, exploring and trying to find what I want. If I went into music, I knew what I wanted. I want to play piano. if I went to MIT, same thing. It would be very science oriented, but I wasn't really sure. And also, if I went to MIT or Harvard and I realized I didn't like it and I wanted to do music, that's 2 years of practicing lost. People out there are practicing 12 hours a day in conservatory, doing that for 2 years, and I'll have to catch up, and it's near impossible to catch up on something like piano. You just lost 2 years of your piano practicing. So I thought, if I went to Juilliard 2 years and I didn't like it, so what I actually told Harvard was I deferred them for 1 year. I said, I'm going to Juilliard, which is like a professional school for a specific trade, and I want to defer you guys so that if I don't like it at Juilliard, I go back to Harvard. I said, sure. So that's what I went to Juilliard. I loved it. Never looked back. But I was kind of practical about it. I knew, with the way I think about things, and I knew that I would be able to catch up academically if I went to Harvard a year late. That's not, people spend 5 or 6 years sometimes doing undergrad, looking for things and exploring and stuff. So it's not, but for piano,
it doesn't work the other way.
It doesn't work. It's like sports, you have to do it when you're young.
Yeah.
And the second question I asked myself was, can I go a day without thinking about science or math or stuff like that? Probably. Can I go a day without thinking about music or playing piano? I get itchy if I don't touch the piano. So for me, that kind of was telling. It was kind of clear what I wanted to do.
That's great.
But you just getting into Juilliard doesn't mean much. Most of the work happens after you get into Juilliard. So, theoretically, I could have gone and just not liked practicing. I could have not liked the environment. I could have not liked being in a practice room for long, even if I were talented and really good at music. It's a very specific type of career, and a very, there's plenty of other things you can do in music that is just as fulfilling, as wonderful, and as enriching to other people as performing in public. But it just happened to be this is what I was able to do. I want to advocate you to practice piano as hard as possible and to enjoy it, and to, performing can be scary at times, but take it as a challenge. If you can perform on stage, when later on, if you're not, even if you're not a pianist, you go and you have to, you're a doctor, you're giving lectures, around at different universities, you have to use this skill of being on stage and presenting a prepared, something or other, and to the public. So it's not wasted at all. And even if you don't do piano, there's lots of my friends have gone on to do other stuff related to music. Being music theory teachers, being helpers in the community, helpers teaching kids like you guys, teaching university students, teaching adult students.
Doing what I do, bringing music, presenting
music
it.
is more than just, it's ironic coming from me. It's more than just practicing 9 hours a day on the piano. But if that is something you really want to do, then that is something you really have to devote time to doing.
Well, we wish you so much luck.
Thank you.